The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Get ready to dive into the comic book realm where heroes rise and villains take the helm. We're here to dissect the stories in the art. A source material, we tear the panels apart. Welcome to the source material show now. We don't hold back, we won't let you down. From Batman to Spider-Man, it's all fair game. We'll talk about the heroes, the villains, and everything in between. Oh yeah.
Welcome to the show. That's right. It's the Source Material Comics Podcast. Up in the sky, Mark.
It's a bird. It's a plane.
It's Mark Radulich over there, ready to talk some Superman comics.
It's Super Duck. Ah!
No idea. Don't know. What are you referencing?
You've never seen the Daffy Duck is Super Duck?
I knew this was Looney Tunes related.
Yeah.
I could just tell. No, I have not. So I'm going to have to find it now. Super Duck. Well, duck and cover, ladies and gentlemen. It's All-Star Superman. Oh my goodness. This has actually been on my radar for a little bit, but I didn't expect you to come to me and say, let's talk about it. Why don't you let the listeners know, Mark Radulich, why we are going to be discussing All-Star Superman this evening?
The James Gunn Superman that comes out July. I'm not sure when you're going to drop this. It might be next week. It might be next month. I don't control you. You are your own man.
The plan is to air this with probably in the week at the very least that the theater is showing this movie.
At some point in an undetermined future, the new James Gunn Superman, which is kicking off the James Gunn reboot of the DC cinematic universe, drew inspiration from All-Star Superman. I think it's actually a couple of different books. I might look that up in a second while you're talking, but the main kind of visual hook for the film, the aesthetic, some of the literally shot for shot, draws inspiration from All-Star Superman.
Wow. Yeah, I had not looked that up. Frank Quitely is our artist here, and he is well known. And I think this is one of the books that I think
he is very comic booky.
He put him on the map, though. Or this book, I think, put him on the map. It's probably the best way to put that. Granted, I am not completely I don't completely know everything that he's done, but this series is lauded by a lot of people as one of the better Superman stories that is out there. This aired. Yeah, it aired back in 2005. This began in 2005, and it was released bi-monthly. So 12 issues all the way up till October of 2008. So that is how long it took for these 12 issues to get out there. And behind the writing is one Grant Morrison. Yes. And Mark, we had a little discussion right before we got on here. As you were finishing the book, I said that you could very much tell he wrote Doom Patrol at one point.
Yeah.
It is
there's a bit in this where it's like Superman's from various periods in time, and I swear to God, I thought one of them was Negative Man.
Yeah, that's the same thing I thought too. I was expecting, I was like, oh, this is the Doom Patrol. That is not the case. But yeah, I was right there with you.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
So yeah, there's some. Absolutely.
All right. So I know you've done a bunch of Superman over the years. I've done some of them with you. We did Kingdom Come, for example, which really wasn't a Superman book. That was more of like a Justice League book. I It's one of my favorites, actually, that we've ever done. One early appearance by your girlfriend, Alexis Hana.
Oh,
By the
yeah.
way,
Yeah, I
remember
remember
that? Yeah, she wormed her way into that one.
Let's write a song about it.
I have plenty of ideas. So anyway, so I want to read you this bit from the development section of Superman 2025, okay? And just tell me yes or no if you've read any of these, or if you've not read them, if you've covered them on source material, besides Kingdom
Gotcha.
Come. The film was also inspired by the animated Superman short films from Fleischer Studios from 1941 to 1943, and the DC animated universe show Superman the Animated Series from 96 to 2000, and by other comic books such as Superman Birthright by Mark Waid.
Nope.
Okay. The 2008 Brainiac story arc from Action Comics by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank.
I don't think we've covered that.
The crossover event Superman Ending Battle from 2002 by Johns, Joe Casey, Joe Kelly, and Mark Schultz.
No.
Superman for All Seasons, 1998 by Jeff Loeb.
Ooh, that sounds so familiar. That might have been on the radar, but not covered.
The Elseworlds limited series Kingdom Come, which we did cover, so we'll move on. Morrison's Action Comics run, and the story Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow by Alan
Whatever
Moore.
Happened to the Man of Tomorrow is definitely something that we've talked about on here.
So those are all in the soup for the new Superman movie, which makes me a little worried, I gotta be honest with you, that he took that many pieces of inspiration and was like, Superman movie. I'm like, maybe one or two of those, not all of them.
So All-Star Superman was not listed there?
It was, but we're talking about it now.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah, I was just taking a look to see how many Superman books that I have covered on source material, and
I did the Many Worlds of Krypton because we linked that to at least I think the first season of Krypton.
Right. Wow, I don't know how to get this thing to filter because apparently it just doesn't exist to filter on Google Sheets. So whatever. Yeah, but I've talked a lot of Superman over the years. But yeah, a good bit of those books. The best one.
You know which one we did? Superman versus Muhammad Ali. Which is what I think they should have based this on.
That would have been interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, episode 46 of the Source Material Comics podcast. That was me and I think Tim Browning of at one point the Casual Heroes. So that's
an actual casual hero. Wow.
2015, dude.
Good
so
grief.
10 years ago. But yeah, man. So this, like I said, this has been on my radar for a while. I've wanted to read it. I wanted to sit down. I actually own it. It is one of the few books that came in with this massive box of graphic novels that I got at an auction and just have not had the chance to get in, sit down and read it. So I'm glad this is, I assume, one that was been sitting on your shelf or no?
No, this is one we're doing because of the movie. However, I do not own a copy of the book.
Okay.
This is not my copy.
So you borrowed this?
Copy. No, this is well, yes. This is Jonas's copy.
Gotcha.
He got this, I think, either for Christmas or for his birthday. I think it was for his birthday because I immediately grabbed it out of his hand and I was like, I need to borrow this. Ran away. And then I ran away from him.
It's my favorite book, Dad. No.
Yeah, so he's gonna get this back tonight after I make a video where I can sell it on TikTok from the TikTok shop.
Perfect.
Just in case anyone's wondering. You can buy this book. All-Star Superman. Buy this book.
Go check out
Jay Sherman.
I was gonna say, go check out our discussion of The Critic earlier last week. Yeah, so Grant Morrison, Frank Quitely on the art, Jamie Grant doing inking and coloring, and then we have Phil Ballsman doing the lettering. Like I said, this started in November of 2005, cover dated January of 2006, went all the way to October of 2008. 12 issues. We're going to break them up 4 apiece. and we'll kind of talk about each of the happenings in those 4 issues. But other than that, I mean, I'm ready to go here with my summary. I don't really have anything else I think I need to talk about. I do want to give you the floor here, sir, if you wanted to say anything else before we jump into it.
So I'm okay to talk about Superman comics. There's a few that I own. There's a few that I like. I love the Emperor Joker book. I've talked about it a bunch with you because guess who's in it? Joker's in it.
Yeah.
And it's Superman versus Joker instead of Joker versus Batman or Superman versus whoever from his Rogues Gallery. And then I've talked about this with you before. I love the concept of Joker screwing with Superman because Superman, and you'll see it in this book, sometimes he's portrayed as like a super intellect. This book leans a lot into Superman as scientist, which I also like. But not every writer does that. And in Emperor Joker, he is all like turned upside down by the Joker. He's just doesn't know what to do with him. So I actually own a copy of Emperor Joker. I also own Superman Up in the Sky, which I don't remember
that one.
Who that's by. Yeah, I got the hardcover a couple of years ago, for Christmas from the ex-in-laws. Superman Up in the Sky. Was written by Tom King. That's probably why I got it. Yeah. So yeah, this was a 6-issue limited series that got turned into a graphic novel, trade paperback rather. So I own that. I don't own a copy, obviously, of Superman versus Muhammad Ali, but I do own a T-shirt. I have the cover of that comic book on T-shirt.
I saw it. I think I may have told you I saw that issue at an auction, and I offered an antique dealer that I knew that's in town, ended up getting the issue the issue was in the bottom of a crate of like Bronze Age, like 70s and 80s DC comics. And like, I remember seeing Supergirl, the adaptation in there, comic book adaptation of the Supergirl movie. Anyway, so I offered the person, because they end up outbidding me, and I go over to them. I'm like, look, I just want one issue. And I'm hoping and praying they have no idea what's on their hands, which I don't think that they do to this day. But I said, I will give you $20 for the Superman Muhammad Ali that you have in there. And this was before he had passed away. So it was right there. And they come back. She went and talked to her husband, comes back and goes, we'll take 40. And right there, and I knew what they're doing. They're trying to get me to haggle with them or whatever. And they probably would have dropped it down to 30, 35 or whatever. But anyway, I go to the antique store, and I'll be damned if it's not sitting there in the antique store for $40 after they had beat me to it. But I had my chance. I just didn't have the money on me to where I was like, oh, I should have got it. Now, to this day, I kick myself because it's one of those lost things. But yes, that cover is awesome. The concept is awesome. How it all came together. Fun stuff. But anyway, go ahead.
So yeah, but he's not my favorite character. And in all honesty, I don't know if I would have ever even read this book. I've heard this, like Gavin's a big Superman fan from what I remember. Me and him have actually, in a friendly way, have bumped heads over interpretations of Superman. He has a very conservative, and I don't mean politically, but like a don't touch my Superman kind of attitude towards the character, which a lot of people have. I'm citing him by name just because I know him and he's a friend and we've argued about it. So he's in my head in that sense. But there's a lot of people who feel that way about legacy characters. Pat's another one, friend of the show. He's another one that's like, don't touch the characters, leave them. Whatever their interpretation of the character was in the golden and silver and probably through the 90s age of that character, that's what they want it to be forever. I tend to, oh, by the way, Red Sun, that's another one that we did.
Oh yeah. That's the alternate.
Yeah, I think I did the cartoon with Alexis, and I did the book with you.
Okay.
But in any case, there's a lot of people that just want Superman to be portrayed kind of only one way, except that comic book writers can't, even like ones with the best intentions, not doing any kind of messaging or trying to reinterpret the character in some way, don't always agree on his presentation. Like I've said before, he's kind of dumber in some iterations of Superman. He's smarter in others. They tend to lean on his sort of lawful good nature in some. In others, he's a more conflicted character that they kind of drew from for Man of Steel, you know, the Zack Snyder movie. Another book I've actually done, I think it's Bendis, Brian Michael Bendis, who did the Man of Steel comic. The one I did with Chris Sheehan.
I was going to say he went from Marvel to DC, and I think that's the book he lands on.
Right.
And that was a big deal.
Yeah, I remember I reviewed that one with Chris Sheehan, and I think there's another one that me and Chris Sheehan did. I might look it up while you're doing the plot synopsis. There's another book that we did. So I've done quite a bit of Superman over the years, and I don't think he's the most interesting character, but I don't mind talking about him. I'm not unhappy I read this book, because after seeing that it was like an Eisner Award winner and it's beloved and all of that, I'm like, oh, okay, this is something I can shit on. No, this is but I think as widely beloved as this is, there's room for criticism. So I think we'll have an interesting discussion about it. And thanks James Gunn, despite my lack of faith in his ability to make a decent movie.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what your thoughts were on the movie right now. I mean,
I'm anxiously, cautiously optimistic is about right.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to pull it off, but also I've like teared up during the trailer. Like the Superman, the guitar rock version of John Williams' Superman score gets to me every time. I said to Robert on a recent episode of Damn You Hollywood, this is the first Superman movie in a long time that seems hopeful. And I miss that about Superman. I grew up with the Donner Superman movies, and of course the best Superman movie ever made, Superman 3. The Philly Flash. 2 keys at the same time. So, obviously, you know, Superman in the movies is something I have followed very closely. So, you know, I'll let you get into the book now, but I'm definitely intrigued by how this discussion's going to go.
All right. Well, here we go. Well, let's jump into the first 4 issues. All-Star Superman. It begins with a bit of a poetic retelling of Superman's origin, immediately establishing this mythic kind of tone for this book. Superman saves a solar research team in our first issue, led by Dr. Leo Quintum, from sabotage by a genetically engineered suicide bomb, an act that pushes his powers beyond their limit. The rescue is successful, but the cost is steep. Superman learns that his cells have become oversaturated with solar radiation and are beginning to die. Calm and composed, he keeps this revelation to himself, determined to complete a bucket list of good deeds before the end. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor is arrested for orchestrating the sabotage, smugly hinting that this was only the beginning of his master plan. In issue 2, Superman reveals his secret identity to Lois Lane and takes her to the Fortress of Solitude for her birthday. While she is initially skeptical, thinking it's another elaborate ruse, she becomes increasingly paranoid when she stumbles into a restricted lab, misinterpreting Superman's intentions. Her fear is amplified by a cryptic warning from the future via the time telescope. Just as she begins to panic, Superman calms her fears and presents her with a serum derived from his own DNA. It will grant her his powers for 24 hours, a birthday gift to let her experience life as his equal. In issue 3, it delivers a max of superhero action and romantic fantasy. Lois, now a superwoman, battles subterranean monsters alongside Superman before being interrupted by time-traveling muscle men Samson and Atlas, who challenge Superman for her affection. Their antics escalate into a cosmic dilemma when the Ultra Sphinx arrives to reclaim a stolen artifact, what was given to her, a radioactive necklace. The Sphinx freezes her in a quantum state and demands an unanswerable question. Actually, it was Gorilla Monsoon, I believe, that showed up. And he asked the question. I don't even remember how it goes. What happens when the unstoppable force meets the
It's
immovable
object.
Yeah,
Yes.
there we go. All right. And Superman answers this by saying they surrender. Now I'll talk about that here in a second. Superman cleverly responds with they surrender, resolving the challenge. He later defeats Samson and Atlas in an arm wrestling contest pretty badly, reaffirming his place in Lois's heart. The two share a romantic moment on the
Nothing
moon.
like breaking a guy's arm to make a woman fall in love with you, by the way.
Right. I love how I think it's Atlas who gets, no, Samson gets one arm broken, and then the picture is Samson in the hospital with two broken arms. So he decides to try. Oh, he breaks one arm. He's like, no, I'll get you with the other one. Doesn't happen.
I don't think there's anything wrong with persistence.
Yeah, well, okay. The two share a romantic moment on the moon and Superman prepares to propose, only for Lois to fall asleep in his arms as her powers fade. Issue number 4, we're going to get wacky. We switch our spotlight to Jimmy Olsen in a more somewhat comedic adventure. As part of his For a Day journalism series, Jimmy becomes the director of Project, a science agency on the moon. But things spiral out of control when Superman is exposed to a mysterious new form of kryptonite, black kryptonite, that turns him evil. Superman grows unstable, aggressive, and begins threatening the world. Desperate to stop him, Jimmy transforms himself into a version of Doomsday using a prototype weapon. The two battle fiercely until Jimmy regains control and helps Superman recover. By the end, Jimmy returns to Earth and patches things up with Lucy Lane, I believe is our other lady here, in grand fashion by altering the moon to say, I love Lucy. All right, there you go. That's our first 4 issues. Mark, I'll give you the floor here. What are you thinking, man?
So we don't know he's dying yet by the end of issue 4, right?
We know that he died. We know that he was dying at the end of issue 1, and I think Quintum knows too, if I remember correctly, because I think he's talking to Quintum about it, or something comes up, and Quintum ends up finding Professor Quintum or Dr. Quintum or whatever. So he knows that he is going to die. As a matter of fact, Samson tells him, "Hey, you are going to die." And here's these things that you're going to have to do. It's kind of like prophesied or whatever. Yeah. So he is on his way to dying by the end of issue 1, and he knows it.
Okay. So I have a couple of thoughts. One is, if you bought this as floppies as it came out month to month, I think this series might be more enjoyable. Like, oh, what is this Elseworlds Superman going to do next? As a trade, as a graphic novel, because it's such an episodic book. Every issue, he's, the story structure, the model that they're going with is it's the 12 labors of Superman, which I think is an interesting idea. Every issue he's dealing with something different. Again, the monster of the week thing. But he has like a great deed in every book, and every floppy. So in that sense, there's that through thread. This is also him getting sick, finding out he's going to die, trying to not die, then making peace with it, then kind of going through the process of saying his goodbyes while stuff is happening.
Right.
And I think as a treatise on, a meditation maybe on the acceptance of dying, I think it's an interesting one. I can see why this resonated with people. Superman going, there's nothing I can do to stop this. I thought I was an immortal being, but it's funny. He's kind of being written as going through an existential crisis. The Forever Man, the immortal Superman is dying, and he can't stop it, despite all the science, Kryptonian science, all the knowledge, all of these great things. He doesn't know how to stop this, and so he moves through these stages of grief rather quickly to acceptance. And then it's kind of about just getting his affairs in order, which I thought was an interesting take. I don't know if Grant Morrison didn't want to deal with the other very real stages of grief, or if he just felt like Superman is made of psychologically, emotionally sterner stuff to not wallow in that sort of thing. Which, okay, I don't hate that idea. So that's all really good stuff in the first 4 issues. His relationship with Lois is interesting. Everyone handles that very differently. Everyone handles Lois very differently. But
Yeah.
I think giving her a gift for her birthday of here's a super suit and here's powers for a day, you get to feel my gift to you is you get to feel what it's like to be me for a day. Did the feminists not read this book? Because if they did, they should have set the libraries on fire. Like, what
it's like to be a man, but not just a man, a Superman.
The best man, right? You're not good enough just to be Lois Lane. A better version of you is Superman. And so you get to finally achieve maximum womanhood by being a dude. Yikes. And I'm not really like the one criticizing that. I'm thinking about like of all the things that get criticized, like woman in a refrigerator, that kind of a thing in comics. That there's this kind of movement going on in comic books currently of, not that we haven't had women writers, we've had them for years, but they're a little bit more vocal now because they have social media at their fingertips. So like there's a creator on TikTok who's been publishing a bunch of TikToks as of late and giving away comics. She wrote a recent Phoenix book, and I know that because that's one of the books she's giving away.
Is this oh my goodness. Do you have the name?
No, she's Tart with a nose ring.
Okay. Tart with a nose ring.
Yeah, I believe is her Indian name.
Okay.
In any case, if you want to look up recent broads who've written the Phoenix book, be my guest. So, my point is, like, there's been a lot of like talk about how the comic book industry deals with women, both as creators and as characters. So I'm surprised no one else picked that up or cared if they did, because it's the kind of thing women right now tend to complain about. Or maybe they did and I just didn't see it. It's like everyone else loves this book. Shut up. Get in the kitchen. Make a sandwich.
Let's do another stereotype. What women are reading comics? I mean, come
None
on.
that I can see, Jesse.
Right. I don't know any.
Yeah.
I'm okay. So
am I out of line by making that observation? Like,
no, I mean,
okay.
Here's my thought on it. I think that the way that I, of course, dewy-eyed, doughy-eyed. Let's try that. I can be dewy-eyed too.
Jesse in his pink dress and
right.
hat backwards, licking a lolly. Just
I looked at it as, this is he knows he's going to die.
Yeah.
He wants to have this one connection with the one woman that he loves. And he is the most unique being on the planet.
Sure.
Man, woman, child, whatever.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not the one having a problem with it. I just thought about that and went, I wonder why.
Where are the women?
Where
why
are the
don't
women
they
complaining about this? You complain about everything else.
All right.
Where are you on this one? If you're asking me though, okay, stop projecting onto other people. How about you just give me your own criticisms? Okay, taking off one hat, putting on another hat. I thought it was sweet. I thought it, I think it's a very nice thing that he does for Lois. It was like,
yeah.
I think people look at Superman as aspirational. I know that was one of the things that Gavin said about him, that he's an aspirational character. I think if you remove gender from the equation and you just look at him as an aspirational being, why wouldn't Lois want to be Superman? Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't anyone want to be Superman?
Right.
That's kind of the goal, is to be as good as Superman if you can be.
Yeah.
I think because I haven't gotten you in enough trouble on this episode you didn't want to do in the first place, I think
I wanted to do the episode, but trouble, yes, you bring it all the time.
I'm just teasing you. Superman is the Christ figure, the aspirational Christ figure. This is, God's perfect son sent to humanity and, then die for our sins. I like Superman as that kind of fictional character. And so again, why wouldn't you want to model why wouldn't you want to walk in the footsteps of Christ and model your behavior and try to be the best person that you can be? Isn't that like the point of life?
Right.
Some way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's willing to make a sacrifice to help the betterment of everyone. To try and
especially when you see
save
what happens by the end of
everyone.
this book. I mean, he's not up on a cross or anything, but yikes.
No, he just turns into a spirit pretty much, and off he goes. Yeah, we get our plot here where we find out he's going to definitely die in the future. So he's got that's he called it the monster of the week, but essentially it's kind of a countdown.
Yeah.
Because we're counting down, like, okay, we're about there. And once he hits the end of this thing, he's going to die. You mentioned Elseworlds earlier. I don't think this is. I mean, it definitely feels like there's a lot of stuff that's happening in here, like him revealing himself to Lois, which probably took, decades in actual comics.
Right.
So it does feel kind of like it's outside of that, but you go to the wiki, there's no mention of like, this being outside of canon, which is kind of interesting. Some of these characters, like I know Jimmy Olsen, I know Lois Lane.
Hang on. If you look at the publishing history, it does talk about that a little bit.
Does it really?
Yeah. Let me,
I found it here. I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, the series was the second to be launched under DC's All-Star imprint, the first being All-Star Batman and Robin and the Boy Wonder. The series were attempts by DC to allow major comic creators a chance to tell stories showcasing these characters without being restricted by DC universe continuity.
Well, so that very much feels like it's definitely outside of canon then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't think I think this was an encapsulation. One of the reasons why I wanted to do it once I did the research myself was it's an encapsulated Superman tale.
Mm-hmm. So an all-star universe, because there is an all-star Batman or Superman Batman, I think.
Right. He actually gets he gets a mention in this, like, how's Batman doing? I'm like, he's fine.
Yeah.
Which I really wanted them to like cut to Batman and he's like drinking whiskey.
Not his book. Oh yeah. That'd been great. I didn't get they surrender. I don't know, the answer to that joke that he answered, or not it's a riddle. That the Sphinx asks him, and he's like, they surrender. Is he just speaking on behalf of Atlas and Samson? And he's like, they surrender. I don't get it.
There are elements of this book. I
Grant
couldn't
Morrison.
remember. I couldn't remember who Grant Morrison was in the great pantheon of comic book writers that we've covered. And then you're like, it's Doom Patrol, and I'm like, no more questions, Your Honor.
Yeah, dude, it's like, there's a square universe. Oh, okay, there's a square planet.
Yeah,
I understand.
there are elements of this book where I'm just like, what did I just keep reading? You have a deadline. Like it was weird, and I accepted.
Don't look too far into it.
Yeah.
Right, dude. Just let it be what it is.
Right. No, I'm too busy trying to make up gender problems in the book.
And my last note here is we do get a cool Jimmy Olsen issue, which is very much a throwback to, I don't know if you ever saw any of the stuff that happened in like Superman's pal.
Women's clothing at one point.
That's just how Jimmy Olsen is just on a different level as far as like mentally. He is a successful reporter. As a matter of fact, I think Perry White's like, I don't know how. But your stuff is like, everybody loves your stuff.
Like,
in our
he's really,
paper.
I think it's a nod to just like the quirky nature of like popular characters in social media.
Okay.
You know, there are just some people that are like TikTok famous because they have just the quirkiest personality and takes on things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they're not me doing, books, dense book essays reduced to 3 minutes because it's the only way I'll be seen and heard. These people are put them up bitter. These people are, they appeal to the people looking for distraction. And I think Jimmy Olsen very much fits that. But it's a very modern reshaping of the Jimmy Olsen character because, like, the original Superman, he's kind of a goody two shoes. He's very much that like post-war kind of laced up middle class white guy, like G. Willikers is Mr. Wilson, that kind of a thing. He
gets so there are some books like Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen.
I was going to ask you about that.
If you get an opportunity, look up some of those. Just look at the covers. You don't even have because I ain't reading any of the issues. I just look at the covers. Like he turns into a giant tortoise in there. I mean, just crazy whacked out adventures. Now, as to the personality, I don't know, but it just seemed like he was always trying to help Superman in some way, and then ends up getting involved and it just goes off the rails, which is very much kind of what happens in here. But we do get like
very
Doomsday
much now
weapons.
want to make you read that book and talk about it.
I don't know, dude. There's a lot of issues on a Superman. That's like straight up from, I'm pretty sure, the early 70s, maybe late 70s.
Oh, because I've seen trades in the local bookstore, but I didn't look that closely at it because until I saw that it bothered you, I wasn't interested.
If you take me, Bronze Age comics are just not my thing, man. It's tough.
Yeah, it
is tough. It is tough. I think that they're fun though, and we have friends on other networks. Billy D, I'm sure that he's dove into some Superman's Pal at some point. These guys all appreciate Bronze Age, and I think that if I was to read something from the Bronze Age, I think I would rather read that because it's silly, it's goofy, and I'm fine with that.
That or Flaming Carrot.
Oh, Flaming Carrot. Okay, now we're talking. And then Black Kryptonite shows up as well, which is, hey, again,
that's what they call me at the Swinger Party House.
I'm certain that they do. I'm sure of it. They're not referencing anybody else. There's Black Kryptonite.
There's Black Kryptonite. Hey. I'm getting naked in the pool. I don't even go to those places anymore, Jesse.
Oh, man.
Anyway, Black Kryptonite, go.
That was all I had. I mean, my goodness, I don't know how you even recover from that one. But no, seriously, that's really legitimately all my notes for these first four. It's neat, like I said, we're getting in. Our first issue sets the tone. We're going to have a countdown to Superman is going to die. Is it going to happen? And most of this is going to be about the struggle of him either trying to avoid that or come to grips with it.
Yeah. All
right. Let's get into issues 5, 6, 7, and 8. Issues 5 through 8 mark a bit of a shift here. We go from cosmic romance and heroic myth to psychological warfare, personal loss, bizarre existential odysseys. Issue 5 centers us entirely on Lex Luthor as Clark Kent interviews him on death row. Luthor, arrogant and philosophical, monologues about his disdain for Superman's effortless greatness and his own self-made intellect.
I don't know what's going on with my brain these days, but I had two things happening at the same time with that issue. One, I've never more sympathized and empathized with Lex Luthor.
Yeah, dude. When you start to hear him talk about looking at this Superman who he isn't actually a man, he's an alien, he's a Kryptonian, he just looks like a man, but you can understand.
Yeah, I like his whole point about why do we need you here? Humanity doesn't need a savior. We can save ourselves, I think, is an interesting take coming from the character. And the fact that they slap it on the villain, it makes it even more, I think, complex and worthy of discussion and debate. But the other thing is, again, every iteration I've seen of Clark Kent hasn't been this goofy, where he's stammering and he's, whoa, 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 even even he's like the Three Stooges, but
Curly
even
from Three Stooges.
But even the Donner cuts of that, I don't know. This is as close to that characterization of Clark Kent that I've ever seen. But I think because Christopher Reeve is such a good actor, and they don't spend that much time with Clark in either Superman or with him being that way, he doesn't bother me as much. An entire issue of him, oh, Mr. Luthor, oh, sorry, I can't see, wear my glasses, He's because I haven't gotten you in enough trouble on this episode, he's shucking and jiving. You ever see a white guy shuck and jive? That was this iteration of Clark Kent in that episode. To the point where I was I hope Lex Luthor kills you. Knock it off.
Very much the bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
But it's all a facade. He's doing that because
baitedness about him that makes him extra irritating.
There's the whole point of that obviously is so that no one knows that this is Superman. Honestly, how can Clark Kent?
If you're this over the top, I'm not believing it. I'm I'm having the opposite issue of Lois. Lois there's no way, and I'm I want to date this issue really poorly. This episode really poorly. I just saw Elio today.
Okay.
Not to give away too much, but there's a bit where one of the alien child is revealing to our lead it does not want to be a warmongering murderer. Like is what is expected of him with his. They're kind of like Klingons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you will grow up and you will be a great ass kicking warrior. He's like, but I don't want to. I want to eat a sandwich. And so what they do is like they're going to clone him, and they're going to put the clone. They'll send the clone home, and that way he'll be saved, and he doesn't have to become what he is destined to be. He'll be saved. And so the father goes to collect the son. They put the son in the machine, and he's like, "This is awesome." You know, and he's like playing with all the guns and everything. And the father's like, "All right, let's go home." And they turn around and they start to walk on the ship. And he's like, "How do you feel?" He's like, "I'm ready to take over the world." Like, you know, and a scene or two later, the father's like, "This isn't my son. This is bullshit."
Mm.
And I bring that up because, like, when you're acting so far out of character, it would be hard for me to. It would be hard for me not to think that Clark is Superman.
Out of character, though. I mean, if you grew up with somebody and they did this consistently for most of the lives that you knew them for, you just come to kind of expect it. Now, granted, I don't know how much Lex knows of Clark. He knows a little bit, but, you know, I know klutzes. I know a few. People aren't exactly falling down. And yes, it is over the top in this comic book. I mean, him trying to save Lex Luthor at that one point where the guy has the gun to the back of Lex Luthor. Oh my goodness, he falls and saves Lex Luthor.
I think the parallel I was making is you spend enough time with somebody, you'll know if there's a difference in their character.
Okay. All right. So you're saying like Lois Lane and other people should know.
Spent enough time with both Clark and Superman. How do you not pick this up? That she's like in the opposite direction. She's like, no, there's no way you two are the same person. First of all, the difference is one wears glasses. Can we get over this already? Everybody in Metropolis has an IQ above like under 50.
Man.
In this universe, like the day Batman like confronted Superman. Like, I know you're Clark Kent. How would you know? How would I not know? I'm the greatest detective on the planet, and you would just wear glasses, you butts.
You idiot. Oh, man. Well, all right. A riot begins to break out at the prison while Clark is visiting him. Parasite's there, and Parasite goes on this rampage, which apparently he's just like, he's able to siphon power or whatever into his body just being around Superman. I don't know much about Parasite. I know he's one of the upper tier villains for Superman, but anyway, Clark, secretly using his powers, tries to mitigate the chaos while maintaining his cover. Luthor ultimately reveals he knows Superman is dying because he orchestrated it. It's a chilling confession declaring that he used Superman's greatest strength, his solar energy, to engineer his downfall. Issue 6 brings the narrative back to Smallville. Now, I don't know if this happened in the past or if this is happening in the present, because at the end, we got some time travelness going on here. But anyway, we're going back to Smallville and a deeply personal story about fathers and legacy. Jonathan Kent reflects on the miracle of Clark's arrival and how proud he is of the man he's become. Just as but as time fractures and cosmic threats like the Chronovore arrive in the present, a trio of future Supermen appear to help deal with the temporal crisis. Superman joins them in the battle, but the cost is high. 3 minutes of his life are lost, and in those moments, Jonathan Kent suffers a fatal heart attack. Clark's desperate attempt to reach his father in time fails. The funeral is solemn, with Clark honoring the man who shaped his moral compass. The future Supermen offer comfort and remembrance, including a golden flower from New Krypton for Pa Kent's grave. The big thing, and I might mention this again here at the end, the big thing about that issue is that one of the Supermen, specifically the Superman of 4500 AD, who has his bandages wrapped around his face the whole time, is actually a Superman. I think it's our present Superman who has come back in order to have some words right before he dies with Pa Kent, which is great. In issues 7 and 8, Mark Radulich heads to the Bizarro world. Okay, wait a second.
I know.
Please go ahead, because I guarantee you what you're about to say is probably similar to what I want to say.
So sometimes for time, sometimes because of disinterest or difficulty in reading, I kind of just speed read, skim through some stuff. I can't handle the Bizarro speak. I know we've talked about this before, and I know I've said that to you. That whenever there's a lengthy bit of Bizarro talking, I'm like, I don't remember talking to you about it necessarily, or rather, we've never covered it on here, but I mentioned it earlier. Bizarro is a big part of Emperor Joker.
Oh, okay.
And I remember it back then. I'm like, oh my god, I hate this character. It's so annoying.
Because you got to read and then run it through your head and figure out it's like you're trying to translate
didn't do
something.
Baby talk when my kids were that age. I hate reading it. It's so bad. And so
it is bad.
I know the gist of what happened in the Bizarro World comic, but I sped read through a lot of that.
Well,
it was really annoying.
I'm crossing one of my notes off right now because that's pretty much my note for these issues were as I could not like I tried. Hey, we just had a Time article about cognitive chat GPT, cognitive recognition, whatever it is, cognition. I have no idea. Anyway, I could run it through chat GPT and have it do it for me because that's what had to happen here. It was just too tough for my brain to try and figure out, well, okay, what is he saying? What is he actually saying? Don't put that much brain power into it. All right. The story plunges into surrealism with Superman stranded on Bizarro World, a cube-shaped, logic-defying planet falling into the Underverse. See, this is Grant Morrison all the way.
Yeah.
This is Grant Morrison just having a blast. There he meets Zibaro, not Sabaros, which would be nice if they serve pizza.
Damn it. That was my joke. And then he meets Sabaro and he brought him a calzone and a plate of meatballs and spaghetti.
A rare Bizarro who possesses intelligence.
Sabaros. When was the last time you had a Sabaros?
I worked in the mall for quite a while, up to about 2004.
Didn't those go away during the mall apocalypse?
Yeah, 2000. So I left the mall in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last time I saw a Sabaro. There was a Sabaro in the food court there, and we used to get pizza.
They don't do a standalone Sabaros. They're always part of malls, and like half the malls in America are gone now.
Yeah, that's the truth.
And I think all the food courts have been replaced by Starbucks. Just one Starbucks after another, and an Asian food place because that's all there is.
The guy that employed me owned like 3 or 4 arcades, and as far as I know, I think he still owns them, which is, that was a business that was not doing so hot 20 years ago, and I don't know what it's like now. But
everything has to be like a multi-level event center. So like they exist. Like my parents are actually taking my kids to go to Dave and Buster's. But have you been to a Dave and Buster's?
Dave and Buster's is massive, and just like you said, multi-level. There's different stories of video games, prizes, tickets, and
right. It's like Dave and Buster's is less a traditional arcade and more of its own kind of experience.
Right.
Come into Dave and Buster's. Do you like to feel like you're in a casino and have no conception of time, but you're not over 21? Come to Dave and Buster's.
Yeah.
Where you'll hear exactly those same sounds that are driving you slightly crazy. I can't. I don't get overstimulated much, but I'm getting old, and I'll tell you this really quick story. Eric and I hung out last night, and we went on a date. But before we went to the event that we were at, we went to have dinner, and I wanted to go to this Greek place by her house, and she was like, it's a little too fast foody for me, and I really I'd like to have a nice sit down dinner and enjoy your company. And I'm like, all right. And she was like, so I'm in the mood for Greek though. Where do you want to go? She's like, let's go to Acropolis. And I'm like, all right, you're picking it. We're going. So we go to Acropolis. 2 seconds later, after like sitting down and ordering our food, the belly dancer came out, and for some odd reason, they were like, "We heard Metallica's in town, and y'all like loud music," and turned it up to 11 and ripped the knob off.
No. Oh my
And
gosh.
Erica's the opposite of me. She gets like overstimulated way easy. And she just looks at me and I could see like, Wile E. Coyote, help me.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh
in
my
hell.
gosh.
Make
Right.
it stop. Yeah. It was not just like one, she comes out for a song like a stripper and like leaves again. No. It was this was like for the entire hour that we were at dinner.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Well, there's always a Wendy's right down the road.
Yes, sir. So
Drive through, but drive through, baby.
What authentic Ohio cuisine will you be introducing me to while I'm on vacation in Ohio, Jesse? There's a Wendy's down the street.
Dave Thomas. Yeah, buddy. Here we go. All right. So Zabaro.
After that fucking tangent.
A rare Bizarro who possesses intelligence, self-awareness, and a poetic soul. As Superman's powers weaken under the red sun, he realizes he can't escape without help. The Bizarros, more chaotic than malevolent, bungle attempts to aid him. Zabaro, feeling a kinship with Superman, tries to help build a rocket to get him home, even as he's mocked by his own people for his difference. Throughout this strange detour, Superman remains compassionate and determined, encouraging Zabaro to keep writing and hold on to hope. In the end, Zabaro defies his world's backwards logic by doing something truly heroic, launching Superman back to Earth at great personal cost. Superman departs weakened but alive, leaving Zabaro behind to record the tale. On Earth, Lois and Quantum monitor the bizarre planet's disappearance into the underverse, assuming Superman is lost for good. So there you go. That's issues 5 through 8. I'll go ahead and start with my notes here, and a lot of them we kind of already covered. But I personally loved the issue with Lex.
Oh yeah,
in the prison.
That's the best issue. That might be that. I'll tell you, like, if I struggled at all with this stuff with Lex Luthor is what saves it for me, especially in the prison. The way Grant Morrison handles his character, I said before, like I really empathize with Lex. It's hard being really smart and people not being with you when you know what a better way is. And I know, like, Robin and I have talked about that. Like, it is hard to navigate this world when you're so far out of alignment with the way the rest of the world operates. It's a very isolating feeling. And I know that the low-hanging fruit, the short-sighted and interpretations of Lex Luthor should be, well, he wants to be a king, he wants to be a tyrant, he wants to be the ruler of the earth, and his big motivation is, because he's the smartest man alive, he should be the one in charge. If that were the case, fucking oh gosh, I said it the other day, Spiro Agnew would have been president, not Richard Nixon. But that's not the way this country operates, not the way the rest of the world operates. The smartest people tend to not win elections because they have all the suaveness and marketability of a mule kick to the face. So, and unfortunately, that counts. It's counted for hundreds of years. It'll count for hundreds more, probably.
Right.
So, but that's small solace to a guy like Lex Luthor, and that's why I kind of empathize with him. I'm there with you, pal.
Yeah.
And then again, like, seeing Superman as an impediment to not just his ambition, but also an impediment to society's evolution, and knowing that if you're too reliant on Superman, you're going to stunt this whole world's growth, and why wouldn't anyone listen to me? Like, again, right there with you. And that's why I can't hate Man of Steel, because that was a lot of what was... They don't have Lex Luthor in the book, but Dawn of Justice does, obviously. And in both of those things, the interpretation of Superman was, we need you in limited quantities, because if we're too reliant on you, you're going to mess this world up in ways that we can't even imagine. And I like that idea. I think it might fly in the face of people who want Superman to be purely aspirational, but I think there's room for nuance in these, books for children. So there's that. But just the kind of almost buddy cop nature of how Grant Morrison wrote that comic. It's like, come along, you spineless jellyfish, and he's like fucking Shaggy. Like, oh Oh, Scoob, I can't. This prison is everywhere.
I've got asthma.
I just have one problem with this. At one point, he turns and blows like cold breath onto the prisoners. Okay, how do you explain why that happened if Superman wasn't there?
Yeah. I just I don't know. I know he's playing it off, and a lot of it is silly. I mean, let's see what ends up happening.
Why is everyone frozen? Air conditioner broke. We don't know. We don't know.
I know that I think he heat blasts the sprinkler system, and then he blows the stuff on him, and then he just kind of like sits back and he's like, oh, he blames it on the prison, like he blames it on this great crazy fire suppression system you got there. So yeah, I don't know. Like you had to have known.
There was enough chaos. I'll buy the sprinkler thing. Him freezing a number of people.
Well, you also got to think there's some soups that are also there. So you can probably blame it on some ice-powered soup that's there because Parasite's there, Lex Luthor's there. There's going to be some
Captain
other.
Cold is there, and they blame it on him. I feel bad for Captain Cold.
Right.
I don't like assigning blame onto someone who didn't do anything.
Well, they were trying to kill people. Whatever.
Have you seen The World? I mean,
yes, I have. Stop bringing it up. This is comics, man. I don't want to talk about the real world. Damn.
My God, that's the second time I've heard that in 48 hours.
Well, then Evan Bevins had to have been the other one.
No. He, by the way, that was like the best podcast I've ever done.
I haven't had a chance to listen to it. I cannot wait to listen to it. Reading the comic, I just wanted to see what you guys had to say. I need to watch the movie.
Well,
but
at
go
one
ahead.
point, I'm talking about Eastern philosophy and religion, and he was like, "Nope, that same thing is present in the Bible," and then quoted me a Bible passage, and I was almost like, "Good night, everybody. I've been outdone by Evan Bevins."
Evan Bevins, good to your mother, Evan Bevins.
Yes,
some
sir.
language, Evan Bevins.
No, it was a really great podcast. He did a really great job. Like, sometimes he could be a silly goose, but he fucking brought it for here. So
nice.
Yeah, like the last couple of shows that me and him have done, he's gotten more comfortable and more knowledgeable, and he's been a really good like sparring partner. So,
good.
But no, it was actually Mac on the when we were talking. Yeah, I sent him something, and he was like, "This is dark. This is way darker than I want to deal with." Okay. Dorian tells a really funny anecdote about him. Dorian got him tickets to go see Les Miserables, and I think that Dorian was in like the crew for that production of it.
Oh yeah.
And it was like an off-Broadway production of Les Miserables. And he was like, Mac, my mentor, my teacher, my friend, my lover, will you please come see, this production? I have given you tickets. This is how I thank you. And and Mac says, Dorian, I love you like a son. No, I'm not going to something that's literally called The Miserables. I have enough problems.
Perfect answer.
Yes.
That's great. All right. My other note here was the story where the Chronivore comes back, and I really thought that the moment that Clark gets to have with his dad before he dies, I mean, just written greatly, because you don't know.
That panel with his fucking hair on fire.
Yeah, right. He's trying to get back there as soon as he can, and he can't. He knows he can. He's been told he can't. He's going so fast that his hair catches fire. Yeah. And if you've seen Superman 4,
oh God. Can I not go one podcast where someone brings up Superman 4, including myself? Ugh.
But no, seriously, it's a great moment. It is, it's told very well. It's also kind of like, you don't know, because if you're reading this issue by issue, the Superman of 4500 AD shows up, I think, in that issue with Lois, and he's got the face bandages and stuff. So this has already been kind of set, like this guy is from the future, like the far, far future. And then when he takes the bandages off and you realize it's actually Clark Kent, getting a chance to say goodbye to his dad. It's pretty good. So that's really all of the notes that I have. I don't know if you had anything else for these.
I'm good.
All right.
I've gotten you enough trouble tonight.
We've got 15, 20 minutes left. I guarantee you there's going to be at least another couple spots for you to do so. All right, going into issues 9 through 12, the final arc of All-Star Superman begins with Superman returning from Bizarro World to find Metropolis transformed by a pair of newly arrived Kryptonian astronauts, Bar-El and Lilo. Apparently, they were in orbit when Krypton exploded, so now they've found Earth. These survivors of Krypton's destruction see Earth not as a home, but as a project, raw material for rebuilding Krypton in their image. Their arrogance clashes violently with Superman's humility, culminating in a bit of a brutal battle that fractures the moon, and which they stitched up with freaking bridges. It's pretty interesting. Anyway, it fractures the moon and threatens the Earth itself. But when both Kryptonians begin succumbing to kryptonite-like radiation, Superman responds not with vengeance, but with compassion, saving them by projecting their consciousnesses into the Phantom Zone until a cure can be found. Even Bar-El, once condescending, acknowledges Superman's greatness with a simple truth. Kal-El has a great heart. In issue 10, time becomes Superman's enemy. With his cells breaking down from solar overexposure, he races to finish his 12 labors, a list of acts before his death. He visits children's hospitals, helps rescue Kandor's citizens, creates life on a microscopic planet, and even saves a young woman from suicide with a quiet moment of empathy. Meanwhile, Lois finally learns the truth. Superman is dying. In a beautiful montage, we see Superman trying to finish what he started. He gives Kandor a new home on Mars, entrusts his genetic legacy to Quantum, and leaves behind a journalistic headline declaring his own death written in Clark Kent's byline. All the while, Lex Luthor sits smugly on death row until he enacts one last scheme in the electric chair.
Well,
Issue number...
Lex Luthor is like the living embodiment of the game with the kid because I have a shield that blocks your ray gun.
Yeah, that's true. He was on, after he was found to be guilty for sabotaging Quantum's thing, he sentenced him to the electric chair. He was going to die.
Here's what I don't understand. How did he have, when even in the episode where the issue where Clark goes to visit him to write his story, I know you're like, are you done? Yes. We move on, and 5 minutes later, I'm like,
this is a good point, though. No, this is a good point.
Well, two things. One, how did he have all of that stuff? Because I've worked in corrections. They don't give you shit. You can maybe make wine out of the fermented fruit they give you in your lunch. That's about it. He's like, you didn't get fucking chemicals and stuff to make your super soldier serum, whatever it is he does.
And he's building a robot. I mean, that's where you see him building this biblio robot or a bibliobot or something. It's like, okay, all right, this is an interesting prison.
Fucking
this is
way
where
they
you send,
gave any of that to you.
This is where you send the supervillains. Oh, give the supervillains all the tech that they need so they can build stuff. Okay, makes complete sense. All right, so issue 11 sees Luthor cheat death by secretly ingesting a 24-hour superpower serum. With Superman weakened and dying, Luthor escapes execution and begins his rampage. As Superman dons a radiant white solar suit to battle Solaris, the tyrant sun, a cosmic showdown unfolds. Superman and his superbots battle Solaris in orbit to save Earth's sun. With the help of a resurrected Sun Eater and sheer force of will, Superman defeats the villain. But the victory comes at great cost. His body, now overloaded with energy, begins its final transformation. At the Daily Planet, a weakened Clark collapses just as Luthor attacks, leaving the question if a final confrontation between the two eternal rivals will even happen. The climactic 12th issue brings the series full circle. In a surreal interlude, Superman meets Jor-El in a dreamlike afterlife and is told he has one final choice: ascend to a higher existence or return to finish his work. Choosing the latter, Superman confronts Luthor, now experiencing life through Superman's senses for the first time. Briefly overwhelmed by cosmic empathy, Luthor glimpses what it's like to be Superman, but it's fleeting. His powers expire, and Superman defeats him with a final blow and a powerful truth. Luthor could have saved the world at any time if he truly wanted to.
All right, so I had a point, and then I lost it, and you just reminded me of it. The funniest thing about Luthor, especially if you're a mental health professional and you've also been through like toxic relationships, is Clark is there to get a story. He was told, come to the jail, I will give you a story. And as a professional journalist, he's like, I'm here to write your story. What do you mean by right? You tell me a story and I'm going to write you a story. I hear what you're saying, but have you considered the master of the house? Quick to catch your eye. Like, what do you, and like, Lex, come on. You brought me here. Let's get serious here. Tell me what it is you're here to tell me. I will tell you what it is I'm here to tell you, because I will tell you things that I'm here to tell you, because you have come for me to say things. Oh my God. I'm making light of it, but there's a certain kind of dysfunctional person who, because they want attention, any number of other reasons, they will present you with what seems like a logical exchange, a logical interaction, a logical engagement, easy enough, and then they won't ever actually give you what they promised.
Yeah, they don't follow through.
It's the entire issue. Clark's like, what's your story? What's your story? What's your story? What's your story? And at the end of it, it's like, I killed Superman.
Mm-hmm.
But this was after, and you can't be like, well, they were running around the. No. He was never going to tell Clark anything until he was done toying with him.
Right.
So, like I said, he's super smart, also super toxic.
Super manipulative. Yep.
Yeah. And I needed to make sure I said that. I have a bit of a problem with the Kryptonians, and it's only this. Like, if you tell me you blew up Krypton and that this is the last son of Krypton, but you make one exception, Zod. Like, oh, he's the one that got away. He was in the Phantom Zone. And he came out of the Phantom Zone, and okay, now we have one of many of Superman's rogues galleries that can actually go head to head with him. Okay, fine. But then this one, but his cousin also didn't get blowed up. And okay, well, what about his dog? His dog also made it. Anybody else not fucking die on Krypton? This entire city? Oh my God.
Yeah.
They make up. It's one of the things I kind of hate about comic books in general is it's the Uncle Ben thing. Everybody dies until we need him to come back, except Uncle Ben. This is the thing that my son pointed to. I think it was the second Doctor Strange movie where he just blurted out, I don't like these Marvel movies. There's never any stakes. I don't believe that people die. They always come back. There's always some, my God, we have the best ending ever. We kill Iron Man at the end of Endgame, and Robert fucking Downey Jr. is back, but because they slapped him in Doctor Doom cosplay. Like,
yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to have like a resonant emotional connection to any of this or anything that happens when you know it won't mean anything. And so, it's not Grant Morrison's fault. He was told you have a disconnected sandbox from the rest of the world. Do what you want with it. And he went, well, I like the concept of Zod, but I don't want to do Zod. So instead, I'll do this, which is kind of Zod.
My feeling that Morrison was looking at he was very inspired with what happened in very, very early Superman books. Maybe from the 50s and 60s. We talked about our pal Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. I feel like he's kind of using some of that for inspiration, which, dude, I guarantee you, if we went back into Superman comics has been around since the late 30s, we could probably go back there and find another 20 Kryptonians, that have showed up because they were just like, okay, well, we got to get this. We got to make this one exception. But what if he did this? And
this group of Kryptonians didn't fit in with scientific, ultra futuristic Kryptonian society. They were nudists. You understand? They
lived on the moon.
They were hedonists, and so they sent them away, and they had a colony, and it was a new clothing optional resort.
Yeah. There you go.
Write that book. Clothing optional Kryptonians, which I once saw open for Metallica.
Oh, yes. Yes, as a matter of fact. I thought they were a cover list band. Oh, that's it. Oh, anyway. There it is. I think that's what Morrison's doing here, in my opinion. But I get it. I mean, we are talking comics now. This thing is 20 years old here that we're discussing. It's 2025. We are so we're so exposed to some of the constant things that comic books do.
Yeah.
And it does tend to get a little bit old. So I understand why that could, grind your gears a little bit. So
It's just like, for me, it undermines what it means to be the last of something when you're not
Sure.
really the last.
I hear you. To finish this out here real quick, I only got like a small paragraph here talking about what happens at the end of this. By the way, Lex Luthor, I mean, he just like, oh my gosh, to be Superman. It blows my mind, man. I mean, he goes on a trip. He starts to realize what Superman has dealt with his whole life, apparently, seeing all these things that are tethered, way Grant Morrison whacked out universal things, so he pretty much gets overwhelmed with the fact that, he's Superman for a little bit, and then Superman takes him out. But
one of the things I really liked about Man of Steel when they did that, like, if Superman has his whole life to get used to his senses being like hypersensitive. When Zod and Ursula and Big Ben all show up from from the Phantom Zone, and they're adjusting to Earth, like, it takes them a while. They're all screwed up in the head because of it.
Right. So Superman, he only has moments left to live. So he kisses Lois goodbye. He sacrifices himself, flying into the sun, vanishing into solar brilliance. At least that's what everybody believes. The story ends not in death, but rebirth. Lois, still in mourning, believes he's not gone, just working inside the sun. Dr. Quintum, meanwhile, walks the moon's surface and hints at a legacy being continued. A vault marked with Superman's sigil, but not with an S inside, but instead a large number 2. That's what I had before I started this podcast. The message is clear. Superman's story is never ending. He may be gone, but he left humanity the tools, the inspiration, and the belief that tomorrow can always be brighter. So, I mean, as far as notes go, I really only had a few on these last issues. And really, the only thing I didn't talk about, it was an interesting ending. Like, there's a 1 page after he goes into the sun, I guess, working inside the sun.
Yeah,
He's got a big lever and he's pulling it. He's building some kind of machine. And I think there's a plot here where the sun had turned blue, and because of something, too much Cialis, I have no idea. But he ended up, the sun was in some trouble. So I think that's why he went in there to kind of correct things so that the sun doesn't implode, explode, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of where we end things. Lois just can't wait till he comes back. She still believes that he's alive while others believe that he's dead. And that's it. That's the end of our 12 issues. So what are your thoughts here, man? Any other thoughts?
I like the book. It's not my favorite. It's not the worst thing I've ever read. I think Grant Morrison has some interesting ideas. There are some things that didn't work for me, like I said, the Bizarro stuff, for example. I've kind of laid out.
I was going to say, do you have, like, as far visually, as Frank Quitely's art, do you have sometimes you have issues with art, sometimes you don't. What do you think of this?
I think it's suitably comic booky, and I think because I think this whole story arc is kind of aping, like Silver Age Superman, that aspirational action comics Superman. I think the artwork fits. I never really got lost in the artwork. I think Grant Morrison, you were like, it's not a wordy tune, but Grant Morrison has some really weirdo ideas. He's kind of like one of the better writers that I think we've come across, because I think he writes within limits. He's not Kevin Smith, who never met a word he didn't want to write down. If he fucking forgets he's writing a comic book and instead writes a phone book.
One panel on Daredevil. Ugh.
Yeah. But I'm still back there reading it. In any case, I'm glad we did this. I'm glad we had a conversation about it. This isn't going to be something I'm necessarily going to want to like pick up again, or some stuff I'll reference, or in different podcasts. Like, we read this book and I remember this sort of thing. This is one kind of like when I did By the way, the book that I read with Sheehan, besides The Man of Steel, was Superman Grounded, Part 1.
Hmm.
And I remember that actually was impactful on me. That was a really interesting story. Which is why Chris picked it. But this one, it was like, I can see why James Gunn went for it. And, like really trying to differentiate his cinematic Superman from all the others. This is not bad source material to pick from. But besides that, I was starting to say at the top of the show, All at Once, as episodic as it is, kind of I was bored with at times. I think if I didn't have to read all 12 issues in a single day, and they were spaced out over 1 month at a time, it wouldn't have bothered me as much. So,
Right.
Would I recommend this to somebody who's just starting out reading Superman? Only if they're not going to continue to read Superman. Like, if you could give somebody one Superman book that kind of tells them everything you need to know about Superman without having to overwhelm them with continuity. Well, like the episode of Big Bang Theory where Amy wants to get into comic books because she wants to be able to talk to Sheldon about it. This would be the comic book that I give Amy.
Okay. All right. That's fair. I think as far as what Morrison did here with Superman, I think he did a phenomenal job of getting across the heart of Superman is probably the best way to put it. He's somebody that has nothing but good intentions for the earth, and he will do anything he can to take care of it, even though he's not from here. He grew up here. And then a lot of that has to be attributed to his parents did a great job raising him, and he's just an all around good guy.
He's the spirit of nobility.
Yes, yeah, that's perfect. So, all right, I'm glad I read it too. It'll be something that I would probably refer some people to that may be interested in it for sure. So, 12 issues of All-Star Superman
I've earned my lesson.
In the bag. Hey, I started on this thing I'd say earlier in the week, so I didn't have too much rushing, but man, I understand your pain. If you tried to do all 12 in one day, it's pretty big.
Started first thing this morning, got up, dropped a TikTok, read, dropped another TikTok, went to the movies, came home, read again, went to the grocery store, had dinner, dropped a TikTok, read again, did a podcast.
Well,
and then seriously thought about flushing my phone down the toilet because people bother me.
You bother me, kid. Laser focus.
Busy man running a social media empire.
Oh, wow. Empire.
Yes.
Empire. All right. We have done it, Mark. Let's get into plugs, buddy. What do you got going on over at the Radulich and Broadcasting Network?
Well, we'll eventually, depending on when this drops, review Superman on Damn You Hollywood. Damn You Hollywood is almost nearly every Monday at night. Almost nearly every Monday at 9 o'clock. You can come see me and Robert and maybe a friend or two reviewing whatever the new movie of the week is. So we'll be reviewing Superman after it comes out in, I think, the second or third week of July. So come check us out. See if we shit all over something that defines you as a person, which is what we do. However, I'm going to take this moment to really push my TikTok. I am at Mark Radulich. You can see it on the screen. But if you're listening to this on Jesse's audio podcast, I don't even know what that is anymore.
It's all video for you. Look at you.
If you heard me tonight and you're like, I like the way you think, what else do you do? I've been doing a lot of short form video essays, the kind of stuff that used to be in books, but books are for burning, and and phones are for scrolling. So I now take book-sized ideas, and with the help of artificial intelligence, not relying on it, I do the work. I just ask for assistance from my AI assistant. And I take big ideas and I reduce them down to TikTok size. And I've been doing a lot of that lately. So
use the tool. Don't be one.
That's right. That was one of my TikToks. Very good. Sometimes I'm reacting to a news piece and kind of giving my take on it, Bill O'Reilly style. Sometimes I'm looking at sort of trends happening in the world, or culture, politics, or whatever, and giving my longitudinal view of things. And sometimes I'm just taking stuff that we're doing here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network and Source Material Podcast and giving it to you in another, in short form. Because sometimes, you get an 8-ounce can, sometimes you get a 12-ounce, and sometimes you get an 18-ounce, right? Same product, just in different bottles. That's what I'm doing, Sometimes we give it to you in a big podcast. Sometimes we give it to you in a TikTok. Sometimes I just give it to you from behind. Whatever you like. I'm here to make you people happy. So make me happy and come check out my TikTok at Mark Radulich.
All right, perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Source Material Comics podcast. Most likely, you should be hearing it on the Source Material Comics feed. We have all sorts of, about 3 main podcasts that are over there. The Source Material Comics podcast, which is comics of any era. You just heard us discuss Superman, All-Star Superman.
Are you ever going to have another guest besides me on?
I'm sure I am.
Alexis always wants to do stuff with you. Why don't you do more stuff with her?
We have stuff planned, believe it or not. It's on. Okay. It's going to be on the schedule here at some point. I got all sorts of people just lined up, Mark. Lined up.
Oh, okay.
But I always give you the front, you always get star status.
I always take you first.
Yeah.
When I'm done with you, the rest they can have what's left.
The Unspoken Issues podcast, 1990s comics. You won't usually hear Mark Radulich on that one. I'll tell you that.
Even a little bit. I am banned from Unspoken Issues. I am persona non grata.
You can go check that out. We talk about 90s comics over there. And I think recently we're going through gimmick cover summer. So we're picking some of our favorite gimmicks, throwing them out there on a poll. Yeah. And not a poll, but on a poll. Anyway, people are picking them, and we're having a good time. So Wildcats number 2 was our most recent discussion. And then I think you'll be hearing us talk about Wolverine number 50 pretty soon. And then, of course, the Marvel Snap podcast that me and Evan Bevins do called Snap Material. And if you play Marvel Snap on your mobile phone, you should be able to check out our discussion about what happened last season, what's coming up next season. Lots of good times over there. So with that being said, we are getting out of here, as a matter of fact. That's Mark Radulich. I'm Jesse Starcher. We're gone. Have a good one. Bye-bye.